Today's speaker is Kerri Ebert. She is a lifelong Kansan who works for K-State Extension as coordinator for the Kansas Center for Sustainable Agriculture and Alternative Crops, KCSAAC, and the Kansas Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education, SARE, Professional Development Program. KCSAAC was established by state statute in 2000 to emphasize research, education, and outreach, and marketing for sustainable agriculture and alternative food, fiber, and medicinal crops in Kansas. The SARE program, first authorized by the 1988 Federal Farm Bill, promotes expanding knowledge around agricultural practices that support long-term farm profitability, protect natural resources, and promote vibrant rural communities. Prior to joining K-State Extension in 2002, she spent 20 plus years in the nonprofit sector, working primarily for ag/member organizations, namely the Kansas Sheep Association, Kansas Dairy Association and Commission, and Kansas Holstein Association. And with that, Kerri will let you get started on your presentation.
Okay, thanks, Joanna and Jennifer. Thanks for inviting me today. I'm gonna share my screen here and go through a few slides with you all about the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program, known as SARE. I'm going to refer to SARE a lot. It's a government organization, so we're going to use some acronyms today. So I will try to make sure that I give the full name of every acronym that I try to use. And I'm going to be looking off the side of my screen a little bit because I've got some notes and I want to be mindful of your time. And so that we've got plenty of time for questions when we're finished. But so just to get started, the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program is a competitive grants and education program operating in every state and island protectorate of the United States. The purpose of the SARE program is to provide grants and educational outreach to advance sustainable innovations for all of American agriculture. The SARE program in the United States divides our states and island protectorates into four regions. And you can see that the North Central region, that's the region that Kansas is in, is shaded gold on that map on your screen. The Northeast region is the kind of greenish color, the Southern region, the red, and the Western region, which is in blue, all the states west of Kansas, basically. Each of these regions is governed by an administrative council, and they make funding decisions and set priorities for each of those regions. Each region also operates its own grant program. These are competitive grant programs. So when we talk about North Central SARE grants and you apply for a North Central SARE grant, it's a competitive grant among the 12 states of the North Central region, not the entire United States. So the SARE program started with the 1998 Farm Bill, and it started as and remains a science-based grassroots grant program. Each region, and with their competitive grants, looks to fund projects with strong farmer-rancher and farmer-rancher end-user involvement. So I think I mentioned this earlier. It's decentralized. Farmers are at the very base, and of the program, it's more of a grassroots up instead of a top-down program like many USDA funded or USDA programs. And again, as I said before, we've got regional administrative councils that set priorities for each of those regions. Each state has an advisory committee that helps set priorities and make decisions for the state. And these people also make up the grant review committees. So the grant programs that SARE operates will be reviewed by a panel of, not just academics, but there will be farmers, there will be non-governmental organizations, there will be maybe extension agents, there might be representatives from ag nonprofits on those committees. But it's very important, and I just can't emphasize it enough, how targeted everything that SARE does is to the farmer. That is the basis of all that we do. So I said earlier we were first funded with the 1988 Farm Bill and housed within USDA in the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, so NIFA. Since 1988, just a few months ago, SARE passed the 10,000 grant mark. So nationally, SARE has awarded more than 10,000 grants throughout all of the 4 regions. And we think that's something to be pretty proud of. And you might wonder, okay, so you funded 10,000 grants. That's a lot of information. It's a lot of data. If any of you have had SARE grants, there's a fair amount of reporting that goes into that. And so one of the other components of the SARE program is the outreach, a very organized outreach program that operates at the national level. And so they are our national communications unit, and they turn the results of this research, all those reports are reviewed and analyzed, and those reports become tools that then can be used for educational purposes and to inform other grants. So this is a look at what we call the SARE Outreach Library. On the SARE website, it's an online learning center that features practical information sourced from these SARE grants. There are fact sheets and bulletins and topic rooms and newsletters and multimedia presentations, curricula for various sustainable agriculture topics, and all of it available at kind of the one-stop shop of the SARE website, which is SARE.org. Most all publications that we have, all publications that SARE makes available as resources are free to download. And many, not all, but many are available in print for a printing cost recovery fee. But you can find all those details on the website. So usually when I talk, and today is no exception, I think the audience is interested in the grant programs. That is, the education is very important. It's what we do with the information we get from the grants. But the grants are sort of front and center with SARE. So to write a successful grant project to SARE, or to have a successful project, the project needs to clearly demonstrate how it will work to address SARE's 3 pillars of sustainability. And so those pillars are improving the economic viability of farmers and associated agricultural businesses, sustaining and improving environmental quality and natural resources, which are the foundation of the entire ag economy, and then enhancing quality of life for farmers, ranchers, communities, and society as a whole. So that's kind of really quick. This is what SARE is looking for: projects that are going to advance this principle of sustainability that SARE uses. So Successful SARE grants always involve farmers or ranchers. And it goes beyond just identifying farmers and ranchers as a target audience. SARE wants farmers and ranchers involved in all aspects of a project. If you're considering submitting a proposal to SARE, it's important to explain how farmers and ranchers are or will be involved in the project. It's even better if regardless of what type of a grant you're applying for, and we'll get to the types in a little bit, if the problem has been identified by farmers and ranchers as a real need. So SARE also allows farmers and ranchers to submit proposals themselves through the Farmer Rancher Grant Program that we have in the North Central region, because that particular grant program is specifically for the purpose of conducting research, for farmers to conduct research, to conduct their own experiments on their own farms. So if you're not real familiar with SARE, you may be wondering, well, what does SARE fund? Define sustainable agriculture. And the only definition I can give you of sustainable agriculture is back a few slides. It's agriculture that meets those three principal needs of agriculture. The profit, some people do it, people, profit, and the environment. But what I can say is that over the last nearly 40 years, this list that you're looking at on the screen right now points to some of the topics that have been addressed by those 10,000 grants that SARE has awarded since 1988. But it runs the gamut from, soil health to pollinators to grazing systems to crop diversification to season extension. If the project fits that SARE criteria, then it's probably going to have a pretty good chance of making it through a review process. So, part of when a person's awarded a grant, it's a contract between the grant recipient and SARE, and so again, I talked about a little earlier about these reports, those reports that become publications that we use, but the reports are also become, and the fact that a grant was awarded becomes public information. And so SARE maintains a database of every SARE grant that has ever been awarded. Upon award, then the project becomes public information. And that database becomes very, very helpful, not just for writing future grants, but also as a resource for farmers who are wanting to experiment with practices on their farms, and they're wondering, has anybody else ever done this? I wonder what they learned about it. So if you're planning to write a SARE grant, great. I would refer you for your first stop maybe to be the SARE projects database. And again, very easy to find, https://projects.sare.org. And it's a very searchable database. You can choose a lot of different parameters for it. But that is where you'll find the entire body of information of projects that SARE has funded, and you can search all the way back to 1988. You can narrow it down to your region and your state even. So SARE maintains a network of state coordinators. Every state and island protectorate has at least one coordinator. Some share that over, with 2 or 3 people. It just depends on how the state advisory council wants to do it. Usually, we as state coordinators, we're hosted, or we are housed at land grant universities. So some of it has to do with how the university is organized. But that state coordinator, in this case me, I am your state contact for SARE. and I can help you. I can help you with write. I can help you write grants. I can't write the grant for you, but I can offer advice. I can read through grants. I can help listen as you talk through ideas that you have that you might want to submit for a SARE grant, and certainly you can. I would suggest that if you plan to write a grant, reach out to the state coordinator. If you're in Kansas, that would be me. If you're in another state, to find the state coordinator in your state. But we're all accessible, and that is our job, is to help people submit these grants, whether they be farmers and ranchers or university researchers. And you can find all of the state coordinators online. So let's get into kind of the meat of all of this, and what types of grants does North Central Region SARE administer or offer? And so in our region, the North Central Region, there are 6 different competitive grant programs that are listed here. Information, really detailed information about each of these grant programs can be found on the website. we're going to look through about 4 of these today. I think I left off research and education and maybe graduate students from, I deleted those slides from this presentation, so I wasn't sure if that was the audience that I had today. So, but if you want more in-depth information, certainly the SARE website has it available. But each of these grants operates a little bit differently. They each have their own timeline, and but they each have their own distinct call for proposals, and you can review those, and we'll give you I'm going to give you some tools in a little bit about how you decide which grant might be good for you. If you don't want to call me and talk to me about it, we've got some resources online that you can use. But let's look first at so what do these 10,000 grants look like? So since 1988, this is for the whole country. SARE has awarded about $110 million on over 3,000 projects. And this little pie chart is just a breakdown. Obviously, the most money is spent on research and education because those are higher dollar grants. But you can see that farmer rancher grants, almost 1,500 farmer rancher grants funded, and then the other programs a little bit smaller. And this is just the North Central Region. So I think I said, I misspoke earlier, country. This is just for those 12 states in the North Central Region. And those, you saw on that map, those 12 states are from Kansas up north to North Dakota. And then we kind of follow the Canadian border over to Ohio and cut back down through all the I states over to Missouri and then back to Kansas. So it's a pretty well-rounded portfolio, except maybe the youth educator is a little bit light. Those are much smaller grants, but very important grants. So I wouldn't want to overlook them. This is a slide that, for those looking at the bottom, what are my odds? Why would I apply for a SARE grant? What are the chances of getting it? And this is a look at last year's grants in the North Central Region, and how many proposals the region received and how many projects were actually funded. So if you look, the very first column on the left, I'm going from left to right, is the Farmer Rancher Grant. The region received 150 proposals, and they were able to fund 41. So what is not quite a 30% chance that you're going to get a grant, but in the grant world, those are pretty good odds. So you could follow the bar chart along, but obviously the most difficult grant to get in the SARE region is the research and education grant. It's our most competitive grant program, and has maybe not the fewest, obviously, looking at this, but close to the fewest projects that we're able to fund. But good projects are always welcome in SARE. But that's just a little look at the, how things break down. So we'll look at SARE in Kansas. And so since 1988, we've had 233 grants awarded in Kansas, $7.7 million in grants. And in the last 5 years, there's some spotty data for Kansas going back any further than that. So I looked at the last 5 years, and we've had 15 farmer rancher grants. So what do we average in 3 a year? 18 graduate student grants, 3 partnerships, 6 youth educators, and 5 research and education, 4 professional development grants. So again, I feel like we're competitive in the grant program. I'd always love to see more come in from Kansas in all of these. Whoops, that wasn't right. Now I think I went too far. Yeah, I skipped the professional development grant. So we'll just go into the partnership. I can tell you about the professional development grant. I struggle to go backwards when I'm sharing my screen. So the professional development grant is an interesting grant, and I left it in, and maybe you shouldn't have, but I'll be really quick with this. There are professional development grants through SARE, and they are for an ag organization or an entity to provide curriculum or training in an area that farmers have identified as being weak, like their ag advisors need more training in this or that area. And so it would be a grant that, for example, that the Soil Health Alliance could apply for, and to train, I don't know, somebody out there who is not a farmer, another group of ag professionals about soil health, but also the professional development program is what funds each state coordinator. There's a separate professional development program, so there are 2 PDPs, professional development programs. The other professional development program is a grant that I have to submit every 2 years to maintain a presence in the state of Kansas. So I've got an advisory committee. We have to come up with ideas and plans for how we're going to teach people about SARE. Doing webinars like this is one of those ideas. So let's move on quickly to this partnership program. This is a fun one that, again, would be a really good fit for the Soil Health Alliance, where a professional works with a group of 3 or more farmers or ranchers on some project that is going to further our knowledge of sustainable agriculture, experiment on the farm. It's like a farmer rancher grant, only a little bit bigger, and it's administered by some other ag professional, some other organization. And the total for that project is $50,000. And again, I can't emphasize this enough, and I think I skipped it completely, but all SARE grants have to have farmers involved at some level. So that's one that's really obvious. Some of the others maybe not, especially like a research and education grant. We also have a youth educator program, and if you remember back to that pie chart that I showed you, this is kind of an underutilized grant program, but certainly it's important for helping teach young people. We're usually talking about, when we're talking about youth educators, the youth, it's usually like high school age and younger. But to teach them about, what is sustainable agriculture and why is it important for the future of the country, for the future of the ag economy. It's not a huge amount of money, but it is a great project for schools, for FFA chapters, 4-H groups, homeschoolers. just kind of the sky's the limit. We've had a lot of interesting projects come through the youth educator, but again, it's not a huge program, but it is important. And then we get to the Farmer Rancher Grant Program, which is sort of our foundational for SARE. Every region has some form of a Farmer Rancher Grant. They go by a little bit different names, but in the North Central region, it's the Farmer Rancher Grant. And I believe, if I'm right, I don't know if Jennifer, if you can chime in, but this is the grant that you have right now with the Soil Health Alliance. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. That's what we're doing.
Okay. I didn't look up the title of it, but I was pretty sure that you had one. So, oh yeah, no, I did. I did look it up. The Enhancing Range and Pasture Soil Health, Productivity, and Quality using producer-focused on-farm studies in eastern Kansas and Oklahoma. So you can tell just from the title of that grant that farmers are involved from the very beginning. But the reason SARE has these programs, the reason they're foundational to the SARE program, the reason that we promote this program, we put a lot of effort into this particular program, is that for ground truthing, any kind of I wonder what if questions, doing it on farm and having farmers do the research is the best way to get that done, because I've never met anyone who didn't have a lot of ideas for, I wonder what would happen if I did this. I think I'd like to try this. I saw this somewhere else, you know, on a bus tour somewhere, and I think if I do this and this on my farm, I think we can be successful with it. That's what this particular grant is for. We know that farmers have that critical insight when it comes to improving their systems, and we also know that that information gets shared very widely. So the name of our program is Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. Research is important, but so is the education part. And farmers are always very good about sharing what they learn. And so this is really important. In the North Central region, we fund about 1,500 of these, we fund about 40 projects of each year. For a single farmer, the amount that you can apply for is $15,000 for up to 2 years, I believe. And if there's a group of 3 or more, and you're all from distinctly different operations, you can apply for up to $30,000, or up to, I guess the teams are 2 or more. Sorry, I misspoke. Up to 30,000, but you have to. It has to be 2 separate and distinct farms. It's easy using farm numbers to check that out if you have any questions about that. SARE has a regional staff person working with each of these projects. The Farmer Rancher Grant, we provide a lot more support than other programs, but we have a dedicated coordinator at the regional level, and that her name is Liz Brownlee. If any of you have had Farmer Rancher grants, you've probably worked with Liz. It was more than 3 or 4 years ago, you would have worked with Joan Benjamin. But North Central SARE always keeps kind of a full-time liaison to work on Farmer Rancher grants. Liz also does the youth educator grants, but certainly the bulk of her time is spent working on Farmer Rancher grants themselves. So, and to that end, over the last year to 18 months, she has really pulled out all the stops to create a lot more help for farmers who are wanting to apply for SARE Farmer Rancher grants. We've now got this 11-part, it's 11 separate how-to videos that kind of breaks the entire call for proposals for Farmer Rancher grants down into different components to help walk you through the process to get you started. There's a really quick 8 to 10 question eligibility quiz that you can do online on the North Central SARE website. Just asks you a few questions about what the idea that you have rattling around in your head is. And when you're done, it'll say, yeah, this might be a good, it might be a good SARE Farmer Rancher grant, or probably not ready for, say no, probably not ready for SARE grant just yet. Got a lot of frequently asked questions. She's now got this. I just learned a couple of weeks ago. We've got a map. You can look on the map with a dot to where every Farmer Rancher grant has been awarded in the whole region. You can zoom into the state and look at where across the state of Kansas SARE Farmer Rancher grants have been awarded. And certainly there are links to the database is there, of course, of all the SARE grants. But they've also created a dedicated link so that you can look at the Farmer Rancher grants that were awarded from the last grant cycle. So you can see what was awarded before. I will caution you that SARE doesn't like to fund the same projects over and over and over again. The purpose of the program is to help innovate practices that haven't maybe been tried yet, or maybe they haven't been tried in this region yet. But it's not a source. If you see a grant for something that has been awarded, you really shouldn't retool that grant necessarily just for your farm and say, this is just like SARE proposal, blah, 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 only I'm doing it on my farm. It's probably not enough innovation for them, because the reviewers are going to say, okay, so why didn't you just read through their proposal, their final report, learn what you maybe needed to tweak at your place, and do it that way. So I will say the SARE is not going to fund, like I say, the same type of project, the same topic over and over and over again. So find the nuances, find the innovation, and look through that database to see if what the answers that you're looking for with your experiment maybe already exist in that database. Somebody else has already done all the work, and maybe all you need to do is implement it on your farm, and then you can move on to the next good idea and apply for a SARE grant for that. And certainly, last but not least on the list, there's a sample call for proposals, so you can see what kind of questions SARE is going to ask, and how what you're going to need to know to put together your whole proposal. And that makes it sound really simple, and it's not as hard as a lot of us make it in our minds, because we hear the word grant and you think really high level, technical, complicated work. This grant program was designed by and for farmers to experiment on real farms. And so we expect farmers to write the grants and for the Farmer Rancher Grant Program. So please don't be intimidated by the grant part. Here's my contact information. The website for the North Central Region SARE, or the easiest one for me to remember when I'm looking online, is SARE.org. When you get there, you can just click on the North Central Region. But SARE.org is very simple to remember. The 612 phone number on the screen is to the University of Minnesota. That's our regional office. We have a couple of regional coordinators, a coordinator and a co-coordinator, and you can reach them at the University of Minnesota. You can always ask questions of me. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to go to Minnesota. But regular people can go directly to the regional office as well. And of course, NCR SARE's on all the social medias. And you can follow us and learn more about calls for proposals. One quick thing that I didn't say, I thought I had it and I kind of skipped my notes a little bit. So the 6 grant programs that SARE, North Central Region SARE, offers are on annual cycles. The Farmer Rancher Grant Program, the call for proposals will be released typically in August. So that proposal is going for the 2027 awards is going to be coming out very shortly, within the next 3 weeks, I'm pretty sure. And those proposals will be due in December. Ideally, it's so that, by December, there's a little bit of downtime in the farm, and then you might have some time in the fall to write grants. But rest assured that those cycles happen every year. So Farmer Rancher Grants always released in kind of the late summer. It's always due the first Thursday of December. And the other grants follow similar cycles. The late summer released grant programs are Partnership, Farmer Rancher, Youth Educator, and what am I leaving out? I'm leaving one out. And then, well, we'll go on. And then spring released calls for proposals are graduate student and professional development. So that's kind of, you can find all those timelines on the website. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, I think, unless you want me to leave it up for that information. And I am prepared to take questions or have discussions, whatever you would like to do for the rest of the time.
Sounds great. Thank you, Kerri, for joining us. We do have a question in the chat or in the Q&A section that I think would tie right into your last slide. The question was not just on the grant timeline, but can you explain when the funding is dispersed for the various grants?
Oh, very good question. Yeah. So I'll start with the Farmer Rancher grant. So because the funds are dispersed a little differently. So there's a method to getting all those end of grant reports. And so the Farmer Rancher grant, I'll walk through the whole cycle with you, and we'll talk about the how the funding is dispersed as I walk through the cycle. So the call for proposals will be released. Deadline will be the first, I'm trying to find a calendar here real quick. The deadline for Farmer Rancher this year will be noon on Thursday, December 3rd. And I haven't seen the call for proposals, but that's how, just like milk cows, we've got this system down with SARE. So the funds, so this will be for projects, what you're proposing right now will be for projects that begin on or after March 1st, 2027. So that is important, and I'm really glad you asked that question because I skipped right over that. It's important as you're thinking about proposals and projects that you want to do on your farm that you think about that timeline. So, okay, my funds will become available. If I'm successful, funds will become available, and I'm able to start spending money on March 1 of the year following when I submitted. So that you'll submit in December, the money will become available the following March if you're successful. You will learn whether or not you were successful in mid-February. My advice is to just submit and forget, because you can drive yourself crazy thinking about it. Well, what if I get it? What if I don't get it? What if I get it? What if I don't get it? Just submit and forget. Then the way SARE disperses money for a successful Farmer Rancher grant is that you'll get, and the percentages are going to escape me right now, but you're going to get, I believe, 50% of your total grant budget. So if you applied for the full $15,000, you're going to get $7,500 of it up front. You can get that up front to start your project. SARE requires a progress report. So there'll be a timeline that they'll give you for when you need to submit your progress report. When you submit the progress report, then you're going to get the next, it won't be the full half. They're going to withhold about a fourth of the funding until you submit a final report. So you'll get the next amount after you submit a progress report, and then when you submit the final report, then they will send you the remainder, the last, it's either, I think it's a fourth of whatever your total is when they, and that is because those reports are very, very important. These, I didn't really come right out and say it, but I mean, because we're part of the United States Department of Agriculture, these are tax dollars, these are federal dollars, and we have to be able to justify how we've spent them. And people in Washington are looking at how we spend our money. And so we have to be able to tell them, this is what we spent it on, this is what we learned, we aggregate all that information. The same process, so all of those grants that come out in the fall will be on that same timeline. I don't believe that SARE is strictly operating. This is a good question that I'm going to maybe say more than I really know. So, the federal government is, when they work with universities, for example, they fund based on invoicing. So, I get a big federal grant here at K-State, and I don't get any of the money up front. I do the work, I submit an invoice for the work we've done, and then it works like that. And there are people at the university who submit those invoices. I just have to make sure they have all the correct paperwork. SARE is not operating like that just yet, especially with the Farmer Rancher grant. With the Research and Education grant, they may be working that way. But the Farmer Rancher grant is the one we're kind of focused on today. And those, like I say, those funds become available in March after the December when you submit, and then it kind of goes from there. And all that'll be worked out with you if you're successful before the project starts. The staff at the University of Minnesota will work with you. They'll also work with you if you run into snags. We've had this happen. Mother Nature happens. Things happen with our lives and our families, and maybe the project that you thought you were going to be able to complete, something happened, and you either can't get to it in the time frame that you thought you would, or you just have to abandon the project completely. And SARE will work with you. If you've started the project, they'll work with you to get some kind of a progress report, and so that you'll be able to keep the money, so that you don't have to pay back money that you've already received, for example. But that's one of the nice components of the SARE program, is that because we have this dedicated person at our region to work with Farmer Rancher grants, and we do with each of our grant programs, it's not just Farmer Rancher. There's a dedicated person at the regional level to help everybody work through any kind of problems that might come up with it. Just be open and upfront and say, look, I can't get it done in 2 years, but if you gave me, another 3 months, I could finish this project. My guess is they will work with you on something like that. But typically a Farmer Rancher grant, that funding timeline, you've got 24 months to complete your project and submit a final report. Any other questions?
I don't see anything in the Q&A right now. Feel free, everyone, to still put a question in that Q&A or raise your hand, and we'll get you unmuted and can call on you. So, Kerri, of the Farmer and Rancher grants, have you seen any changes in some of what the projects have been over the years as you've been doing this?
Well, speaking to the Kansas Soil Health Alliance, I will tell you that I started in 2010 as state coordinator, and we have seen so many more soil health projects. And I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you guys. That and because there are just so many ways to look at soil health. So, every farm is different. So there's so many experiments that farmers want to do, can do, actually do. That's one that we've seen a lot of. We've also seen a kind of a steady increase in proposals from urban areas. And that's kind of interesting. And then that soil health component kind of rolls right into those too, because how you manage, it's just if you're in the real inner city, like if you're in the middle of St. Louis, for example, it's the whole climate is very different. So, not just whatever is in the soil that maybe shouldn't be wherever you're trying to grow fruits and vegetables, but also just how do you handle the climate in a city where you're surrounded by concrete and tall buildings and things like that. So those are the ones that kind of that come to mind. And like I say, the soil health thing, I'm not just saying it because I'm talking with this group. That's one that we've seen a steady increase in, and you'd just be amazed at all the different projects that people have come up with to look at cropping systems and now grazing systems. We're seeing a lot more with grazing systems. I'm constantly wanting more SARE work done with livestock, and we're starting to see a little bit of that.
Well, that sounds good. I can see the list of attendees here, and there's a good list, and I love being able to work with innovative farmers, and I love that these projects help support those ideas. There's lots of good opportunities for cost share, but those are on more established practices. Mm-hmm. So to have a chance to do some of that experimentation and push the envelope and see what can happen while getting, a little assistance for that research is great. I think we had some questions that were in the chat. I think Margit, you're able to ask and
oh yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, hi Kerri.
Hey Margit.
Hey, I've been listening along again because I always have to hear it again and again before I actually start working on something. As far as for a partnership rancher grant or farmer rancher grant, what is the timeline different than the regular farmer rancher grant as far as the deadline and the disbursement?
Yeah, so the partnership grant timeline will be very similar. It will have an earlier deadline. I'm thinking it'll probably be an October deadline, maybe. I think that research and education and partnership both will have maybe an October deadline. Youth educator will have a November deadline, farmer rancher a December deadline. The disbursement, I'm not positive. We would have to ask the regional staff.
Thank you.
Another question was put in the Q&A, Kerri, and it says, how many of those soil health projects you see are university versus nonprofit?
So maybe half and half. The thing with university research is it gets really, really, really focused, Like they're looking at just one small parameter because these grants for universities are $250,000 for the research and education, and that's not just for universities. I mean, an organization like the Kansas Soil Health Alliance, you would certainly be able to apply for a research and education grant, and probably be competitive. You just have to understand it's a really competitive program, and you are competing against university level researchers. So the review is a lot more critical of experimental methods and how the experiment is drawn up. But I think of when I'm thinking about grants that I'm aware of that were for soil health submitted by university researchers, and like I say, they're really, really focused and maybe or maybe not ready for application on the farm right away. What we see when we have farmer rancher grants is that, number one, it's an idea that they've already thought about that's going to work on their farm. And so you don't have to do a lot of extra steps. You do the research, you get the answer, you implement or you tweak and you implement something different. I mean, even if your experiment doesn't result in the conclusion that you thought it was going to have, there will be a conclusion and you will learn, and you'll be able to move on from there. And if you let somebody else help share the financial burden of learning those lessons as opposed to bearing that burden all yourself. But so I guess I feel like when we have farmer rancher grants or even these partnership grants, those are like more ready. They're ready to roll out immediately. As soon as you get the results, they're ready to roll out. And often with the universities, we still have a few more steps. They've got a few more research steps that need to go through before they're actually ready to roll out on the farm. And that would be the difference. But I mean, that's true of a lot of university level research. Is that they take very focused looks, they take really small bites. We take bigger bites, I think, on the farm, and get quicker results.
And I would say that makes sense. I mean, that is kind of where I would see that difference between the two styles of grants is, the one directly ready to be applied on that farm and helping with that, profitability and productivity and sustainability, all those pieces come together because it's something that needs to be the front of the mind to keep those farms going.
Right.
So
that's exactly right. And that's the beauty of the SARE program, I think, is that, through these different programs, the Farmer Rancher Grant, the Partnership Grant, even the PDP, the Professional Development Grant, we can roll out novel ideas a lot faster than we can through the more traditional research angles.
is there I think you did mention it, that there is an easy spot on the website to find the results of those grants so that, our audience can easily find them and see if some of the results are applicable to their operation?
Yeah, let me, let's see. I was gonna share, here we go. Can you see the SARE website?
Yes.
Okay, and this I go to SARE.org because it's quick. And then I click on the gold color because I'm very color oriented, and that's North Central. And then there's this ribbon menu across the top, and we've got project reports. Boom, second choice, search the database. So what if we put in here soil health? You can see what my last searches were for, something about soil temperature. And let's search Kansas and see what comes up. And we'll just look at all projects, all types. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to search. And so the first one we come up with for soil health is, I don't always remember their codes. I think this one was from, oh no, this was a university. This is LNC, L is a code for research and education. So this was Dr. Obor out in Hayes at the research, at the Hayes experiment station from 2018. In fact, I think he's just finishing that one up now. I'm trying to, so here. It's interesting what you get with this database. So let's see, this F is a farmer rancher grant. So this was more of an urban ag with strawberry production. And I'm not sure why. Oh, because he's looking at soil chemistry. So this is, I'm just going to kind of scroll through here and you can see what people see about your grant. They're going to, on the right side of the page, you're going to find out what year the project was funded, who got the grant, who the coordinator is, and then you could contact that coordinator if you wanted to talk to him. This is just going to be a summary of what you wrote in your grant. They're going to pull out these, your objectives and the summary. All grants, you're asked to write a summary, and they'll pull those parts out so that somebody can see. And then let's look at this, at the final report. This is usually when I'm searching the database, I look at the final report. And because I want to know, what did they learn? I want to skip through all the details and look at what they've learned. And so they're going to run through the objectives again, and then they're going to go through a little bit of that experimental design. And this is just pulled straight from the report that this grant recipient sent in. Looks like they made some bar graphs, and so they're looking at, some of those soil components. Bacteria, fungi, organic matter, carbon. Anyway, that's what that looks like. Now, that also made me think that, and I'm not as familiar with all of, they've changed our pages a little bit, but all the extra resources that we have now for farmer rancher grants, it's just amazing. So on the right side of the page, have I scrolled far enough for you to see like what's a grant? This is the set of videos, that North Central SARE has put together. These are YouTube videos. I guess I could go back and we can just look at the page. But there are what did I say, 8 of them, I think. Just taking the whole Farm Rancher Grant proposal apart and piece by piece, and giving you a how-to. And then, you can look at those, and then you can start asking a lot of questions too. So I was hoping I could find that little quiz, the eligibility quiz, but I'm not exactly sure how to find it on the website. I just learned about it 2 weeks ago. So anyway.
That's fine. If someone comes that has questions, we can either reach out to you or
Absolutely.
we'll connect with Liz, and she's fantastic to work with. So the resources at SARE are really great. We're coming right at the top of the hour.
Ooh,
I want to give a minute to everybody here that we can tease next month. And then if anyone needs to drop off, but there was one other question, but I think we'll first address who we have coming on for next month, and then we'll go to that question quick. If you have a minute, Kerri, do you have a minute to stay on past 1? Okay. All right. Joanna, I'll let you hop on and let us know what we should be expecting for our August Soil Health Partnership webinar.
Okay, so next month, August 27th, we have Candy Thomas and Bryce Custer are going to be on. They are going to discuss what is in your cover crop. So they're going to give a presentation talking about different populations of seeds and plants in multi-species cover crop mixes and how that affects the soil health of your field. So that should be interesting to learn about the different mixes and how they affect your soil health. So that's August 27th. And if you want to answer that last question, the question is, from the applications I was involved in with the SARE grants through university, I feel the farmer rancher was not paid enough for their time and effort. So how do I get more?
So I guess I'd have to ask a question. You are allowed to pay yourself through the Farmer Rancher Grant. It's got, it all has to be in your budget. If and something we didn't talk about earlier, but if we want farmers SARE wants farmers involved in every grant that they award, and we also want to see farmers compensated for the work that they do. So that should be so if you're participating with, say, a university researcher, letting them do research on your farm, there should be some compensation that they make. Now, they set that compensation amount. Reviewers of the grant can, and I have reviewed SARE grants before, and I have criticized the amount of money being too not enough to get for the farm for the work. You can see what the farmer's doing, but it's really up to the applicant to set the amount of money that they are reimbursed. Unless, and so having said all that, is your question, is the 15,000 for a maximum farmer rancher grant, is that the amount that's not enough? That would be something completely different. Like, that's not enough to pay yourself and do the research. I'm
going to guess it was through, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you want me to unmute, Jennifer?
Okay. Yes, that'd be fine. You can elaborate better than I can.
Yeah, I mean, both of them. I mean, typically, like if the SARE grant was doing for us through university for 3 years of research, I might get $500 for 3 years, on that type of project, with the ones that we were approached on. And I just didn't think that was near enough. And then, like you said, too, if you're trying to do your own one, by the time you set up the plots and you try to do this, I don't know if 15,000 is enough either to pay yourself for your time plus what legwork needs to go in to complete the project.
Yeah, and I, Bryce, I understand completely. If we would pay a lot more if we had unlimited funds. I will say that when it gets to the review process, reviewers do comment quite often on either, I would expect if you were cooperating with someone on a project, on a university level project, I would expect a minimum of $500 a year, not total. If it was a 3-year project, then that would be $1,500. And again, we know it's not going to be enough to cover everything. But one of I guess it's sort of maybe a subliminal message that we're trying to convey to researchers is that, the farmer's time is valuable. The information you get from a real farm as opposed to our, smaller research plots is also valuable. And so so put a price on it and at least give the farmer something. But there isn't a guideline.
Yeah, because most of the time we've seen how those applications are written, and so if it's a $250,000 grant, 50 to 60% of that goes straight to the university, and then the department that's administering that will take a share of it, and then it's divided up upon the workers in that department, and then it feels like we're the last that get compensated. Yeah. And I mean, that's the tough thing when you look at how those applications are written is it's just like, I mean, I know there's overhead involved for this, but then it's just like, I'm the person volunteering to, offer the ground, offer equipment, time, fuel, labor, everything to do this. And I don't feel like I'm getting compensated the same as what everybody else is on the application, which is hard for us to go ahead and agree to do those applications.
And that's understandable. I will tell you that the SARE program only allows the university to take 10% overhead. And I think K-State's going rate is 45. And I do believe that as part of, some of these changes that are happening at USDA, they're looking really hard at all that overhead because it's a lot. You're right.
Yes.
It's up to 50%. Some universities like, bigger like Purdue, they're like 60%. So it's like, you write $1 million grant and already 600,000 of it is gone. I don't know.
Yeah. And it'd be great if you'd see those go back in the ag department, but they don't.
They don't. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, the universities have really complicated formulas for how they disperse that. SARE tries to mitigate that a little bit with that, maximum 10% overhead. And so the university has to accept that, and whoever is writing the grant has to accept that. But like I say, there aren't guidelines. We don't tell them you have to pay the farmers this much. You have to pay them the going rate for this, that, or the other thing. And I can tell you from looking at those proposals, they come in all over the board. And but we do. I will tell you that they're not going to get very far in the review process, a university level research, if they're not paying the farmers, if they haven't budgeted something to pay the farmers, because that's not what SARE's about. And so I hope none or not many of those kinds of proposals get through the SARE process, because we know your time is valuable and your equipment is valuable. It's worth something, so you need to be compensated somehow. And again, like if we go back to the Farmer Rancher grant, yeah, it's kind of like how then it's up to you you have to decide how much of your budget you want to spend on the project itself, and how much of it you're going to need to compensate yourself, or something for the hired help, somehow and we don't have set there's the guideline of, farmer's time is valuable, but there's no absolute dollar amount, and it's up to each researcher.
Kerri, who's on the review committee? How many people are on it, and how do you determine who is on the committee?
So every project, every proposal is reviewed by at least 3 people individually, and sometimes 5. It just depends. I'll tell you, SARE's getting a lot more proposals than we used to get. And so if anybody wants to volunteer to be on a review committee, if you want to learn about the grant process that way, great way to do it. The composition of the panel. So let's say I'm on a review panel and I get 20. That's a standard, like for a farmer rancher grant, that'd be a standard load, 20 to 25 proposals that I would have to review. By the way, I can't review any grant from the state of Kansas. And if I know someone or work with someone who is on a grant from another state, I can't review that one either. It's a conflict of interest. So I will never be the official reviewer. I can be your unofficial reviewer of all the Kansas grants that go in. If you want, you send them to me. I'll read through them. I'll give you feedback and try to give you a leg up. But I will never be a final reviewer for a grant from Kansas. That's one of our checks and balances. So I'll have 20, and so there will be at least 2 other people, and sometimes up to 4 or 5 other people that are looking at the same grants that I'm looking at. They may have a different mix, for example. Then we go together as a group, and a full panel would be more like 9 to 12 people on a full panel minimum, maybe up to 15. And you review each of those proposals one at a time. Maybe I'm assigned 5 that I'm a primary reviewer on. Everybody scores their proposals before you go together as a group. And then the group discusses, knowing that there are 3 to 5 people in the room who know a whole lot more about that proposal than everybody else, unless you want to be a real overachiever and review 150 grants all by yourself, but nobody does that. So you have to trust. So the makeup of that panel is there will be farmers. Regardless of the grant program, there will be farmers on the proposal, farmers on the farmer rancher grant panels, but also regular farmers on the research and education proposals, looking at that kind of more university level research. There will also be university level researchers or extension specialists, extension agents perhaps on the committees. There will be representatives of nonprofit organizations such as the Kansas Soil Health Alliance, or maybe Kansas Rural Center, maybe Kansas Farm Bureau. There will likely be representatives on some panels from departments of agriculture. We have representatives from the Department of Agriculture on our regional advisory administrative council. There could be reviewers from other federal agencies. Primarily, they would be the EPA or the NRCS. Those are the two other USDA agencies that we work with a lot with SARE, and we try to keep them kind of in the loop. So it will be a diverse panel, is what I'm saying. And it will reflect the Administrative Council of North Central Region SARE, which includes all of those groups that I mentioned. And so you can rest assured that there will be real farmers reviewing every single farmer rancher proposal, but there'll be others looking at it too. And then we can get into real deeper detail. For example, the research and education proposals. Each one of those proposals will be reviewed by at least one subject matter expert. So another academic who has that particular set of expertise will. So if it's let's say if it's something to do with swine, a proposal that has to do with swine, there will be some kind of probably an extension swine specialist from somewhere in the North Central region who does a technical review of a proposal. Doesn't sit on the full panel, but will evaluate it based on their expertise in whatever area that is. And that will not be the final decision by any means, but those do have subject matter expertise added to. That's just the research and education. That was a really long answer, sorry.
No, actually, it's very informative. If there's some information on, that call for reviewers, we send our newsletter out that covers, audience, agency staff, conservation professionals. We send out grant opportunities. We send out job opportunities. I don't see why this isn't something that we could put. You never know.
Great way to learn.
People, might find it interesting. So
it's a great way to learn about the SARE program, especially if you're thinking about applying for a SARE grant. Sit on a review committee and see what other people how they organize, how several different grants are organized. They also pay you a little bit of money, so
that works. So if you think about that, if you want to send that, I know you have both Joanna and I's emails. Send it, and we can include that, like I said, in our newsletters, some of our resources. So that's the heart of a lot of this is helping make those connections and people find them. So with that, we've lost most of our audience, and I don't see any more Q&A, which is fine. We have everything recorded, so those can go back. But I think we'll thank you so much for presenting and sharing this information. And we look forward to hopefully getting some more applications, maybe spurring some ideas from this. So thank you for joining us, Kerri.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be in touch.